This is a, definitely an overlooked word in the society that we live in today because you're surrounded by legalists who do not operate in truth. They promote legal fiction, which should tell you that's just a soft word for a lie. When we go to Noah Webster's 1828, defining the word truth, you can kind of get some clues on how this is going to affect the document that the parents filled in, what we call a statement of birth. When it goes into it, it starts off conformity to fact or reality, exact accordance with that which is or has been or shall be. The truth of history constitutes its whole value. Then it goes into true state of facts or things, and it says conformity of words to thoughts, which is called moral truth, correct, fidelity, honesty, exactness, real fact, sincerity. Jesus Christ, of course, is called the truth in the book of John. So when we look at it, we look at just what was said there. Could truth really be fiction? Could truth really enter into that world of a lie? Well, no, because it's like a barrier wall. The two, when we talk about truth and then we talk about fiction, we know because we've been surrounded by legalists, lawyers. We call them grammarians many times because they are controlling the words, and of course, grammar is gram weight and mar is hindrance. So you can understand that they actually hinder you with words. And we have to be aware of this because they were warned about 2,000 years ago by Christ when he was warning them, the people even at that time, of these scribes or Pharisees. So that were known as, of course, translated into the New King James, into the King James Bible as the word basically lawyer. But they were scribing, they were writing the law, and therefore, when you subscribe to legal, then you are under their legal power. And people somehow have mistaken to believe that they're to be, a subscriber to this. But no, that's not the case. And many scriptures have been taken out of context by people who didn't understand Paul's words when he talked about let every soul be subject to the higher powers. Being subject and being a subject of, subject to and subject of are two different things. So yes, we're not gonna basically physically fight these people that are legalists because we basically represent the Prince of Peace, and therefore we would never bring harm to anybody physically. And therefore we have spiritual weapons of war. These are not physical. So when we look at the documents that the parents fill out, truth shows up on the statement of birth record in the frame, along with fiction. But where truth is, fiction of law does not exist. That is a Latin maxim for a reason. So therefore, when we see the truth on here, and then we look at what even the division registrar writes at the bottom, he says, "I am satisfied to the correctness and sufficiency." Well, he's calling it correct, and correct would have to be true. Correct is not in the context of something that's a fiction or an error. So unless we're going to say it's a correct error, which is kind of very ridiculous, that'd be like a truthful fiction. Even though lawyers will use the word factitious in the world of fiction, but it's again, we're talking about legalists creating their own vocabulary. So when truth basically comes into a position next to fiction, fiction loses because God is supreme, and therefore he is the origin of where truth is, and the truth basically will set someone free. But when we take on a fiction, which is a possibility, people can take on a lie or a liability and bear a title that is not theirs. Now remember, when we're talking about legal rights and legal title are basically granted by the state or by a government onto an individual who's willing to accept it, if they so want to. But in the truth of where if we want to say a true statement of birth could only have what the parents only had authority to give the child, because the parents don't have the ability to give the child or the authority or their authorization to bestow a legal title or a legal surname onto a child, because that is something that's bestowed by the state. So we have a little bit of a framework issue going on here, but the actual certificates that generally are issued are ambiguous and unclear. Very few people are carrying certificates of birth, not to be confused with the record that the parents filled out, but very few are carrying a certificate of birth that does not is not written in an ambiguous format. So therefore, if your name was born, what you believe John first name and last name Smith, it would appear as name Smith, comma John. Mainly because the fact is they've now merged two things that don't belong together and have tried to create a certificate on it. But you can't patent something that's natural, and they're trying to make use of your God-given name and try to bring it into their theory of humanism and secularism. So we have to be aware of that, but truth certainly does not involve anything to do with fiction. And therefore, if I'm going to speak in plain truth, the naked truth, then I would not be able to take on or basically bear false witness of a fictitious title, that even if the state is basically inducing it.